or challenges or opportunities are common. Unless that happens, then there will be no movement on these issues, because we have to move away from the single leadership style to a decentralized leadership system where everyone becomes mature enough to take on a part of the challenge and try to contribute to the common solution. Advocacy is, the advocacy that I think we need is broken down into three main branches. One is media advocacy. Like Tim Apple said, and others, that we have to engage the media. You cannot expect the media to come and look and sniff out your positive stories. You have to present those positive stories to the media. Media advocacy, therefore, is not just an issue for one or two people. It's also an issue for all of us. If you ever see a media issue that you feel, a media story that you feel should be corrected, you should write a letter to the editor. You should invite a journalist to your events. You should showcase the best and brightest in our community. Don't just complain about our issue. I will now show you a video of what I refer to as media advocacy. How do we bring our issues to the table, to the media, so that a larger Canadian society sees that this is not just an issue for Canadian Somalis, but this is an issue that affects all of us. So the second piece I wanted to bring up was government/political advocacy. We have to get involved in the system. We have to be part and parcel with the political system. The first and foremost way you can do that is to vote. We have to make sure that each one of us who's eligible to vote should register to vote. And then once you register, you should actually vote. The reason why that is important is because in reality, there are a lot of politicians who have a good conscience and who will work on issues regardless of political expediency, but then there are others, in my experience, who will not touch a community's issue unless that community votes. So you have to make sure that you vote so that your voice is heard and your issues are important issues to others. The piece that is really important is, in addition to voting, is that it's very, very important to be active in between elections. So it's not just a question of voting once every 4 or 5 years, or in the case of the federal government, every 1.5 years. But how do you do that? You make petitions. You make sure that you follow the city government's hearings, social planning committee meetings, attend them, see what the police budget will be for the next year, and talk about what you want to see in that budget. Go to provincial legislature and present petitions to your MLA, and try to have submissions on our issues to the provincial parliament and, if possible, federal parliament. One of the ways you can do that is to directly lobby, is to send a signal throughout the government that Canadian Somalis are part and parcel of this country, and that their issues should be addressed in the context of Canada, not in the context of Somalia. Last piece of advocacy that I wanted to bring up is grassroots advocacy, and this is the part that I think is the most crucial, and this is where everything turns on. The focus of this event today was youth, and we wanted the youth to take the leadership and engage in grassroots advocacy. We want them to know that they can only see change in this world and in their reality if they become that change. So they have to be the change that they want to see in this world. I'm part and parcel of that process. I'm not saying that here are the tools, go run with them. I will be side by side with them, but they have to get engaged. They shouldn't be cynical, and it is possible. What I just want to tell Canadian Somali youth is that whether we remain marginalized around the edges of Canadian society, or whether we become fully integrated and we become equal citizens of this country, depends on you, us, and our key allies. What I mean by key allies is people in the mainstream, not just elected officials, but others who can help us in that process. But we have to do the heavy lifting. We have to accept that. On that note, I will talk about 3 next steps that the young people have to engage in grassroots advocacy together with us, but they will provide the leadership. They will run the show and we will support them. The first piece is we have a specific ask of the provincial government to raise the mandatory school attendance age from 16 to 18. Ontario has done it, and I think it's time Alberta should do it. And I'll tell you why that is important. If a young man or woman can legally leave school at 16 without having any life skills, that becomes a problem. But if you raise the mandatory minimum school attendance age to 18, if the kid refuses to go to school at 16, you can legally force him to go to school. And if they don't, if they just hate the classroom, then they're given an alternative route to pursue a trade as a carpenter or a metal worker and so on. The second piece, so how do we do that? Well, the youth will take leadership on this and we'll help them. We'll draft petitions and we'll make everyone in the community sign those petitions and present them to the mayor, our city councillors, all our MLAs, and our federal government. We will then turn that issue into a report that will study the benefits of raising the school mandatory attendance age from 16 to 18. We will study how it worked wonderfully in Ontario and present that to the provincial government as a parliamentary submission. And the young people will do that. So not just will the youth fight for the issue, but through the process of doing that, they'll learn about parliamentary democracy and how to advocate in the Alberta legislature and City Hall. The second thing, which is really important to mothers and fathers that have lost their young ones, is that we are requesting the Attorney General of Alberta and the Solicitor General of Alberta to sit down with the community and come up with ways to fully and adequately fund or support prosecutors and homicide detectives that can solve the unresolved 24 murders of our young men in Alberta and 11 specifically to Edmonton. Why is this important? I think that has been explained in the past. Last but certainly not least, young people will work with them and they will draft petitions and asks regarding the adequate funding of our community's much needed services and empowerment initiatives. So for example, when we talked about driving the community to register to vote, or teaching the community about the different levels of government and what the different levels of government do, how do you access the court system, the legal system, the law enforcement system. We will be working with the community, the young people will be working with the community to do those initiatives. How can the Alberta government and the federal government and the city government support those moves? Because it's not fair for the public, the mainstream elected officials to say, well, you have these problems, go solve them. We will do the heavy lifting, but we want allies in that process. We will encourage our people to vote. We will encourage our people to be very active in between elections. We will encourage our people to view themselves as Canadian citizens with a Somali heritage. We want all our elected officials to be our allies in this process. I have to be very frank in this endeavor. We will not forget the elected officials who become our allies as we try to integrate in the society. Equally, those who ignore us and our issues and not treat us as citizens, we will also not forget that. We will informally tell our people not to vote for those people. And they will be punished at the ballot box. So then they will maybe think twice about ignoring this community. So, in order for us to make that change, we have to become more sophisticated. We have to stop referring ourselves as Somalis only, because we've been here for more than 2 decades. We're Canadians of Somali background. And when we are in the public space, we are Canadian citizens who have rights and responsibilities. We have a lot of work ahead. Those are the 3 next steps we will conduct. Achieved. I'm going to end up, I will end up with a note that talks about how, at the end of the day, the heavy lifting will always come back to this community. And so, if the young people want to see change in this community, they should stand up and become the change that they want to see in this world. Thank you.